Mark was a very close student of mine, and once I heard what had happened to him, I knew that I wanted to pay respect to him, his family, and the tragedy by doing something creatively and impactful. When Mark was suddenly not in class, I started to question why, because the absences were consistent every single day. And then the news came to us as the staff that he had taken his own life. It made me think about if I really truly wanted to be a teacher anymore, because if I have to deal with becoming close with my students and they're suddenly not there because of this, that's a lot to deal with. But then I realized how selfish of a way of thinking that was. And instead of deciding to quit teaching, I decided, well, let me find a way to help any of my future students that could be going through something similar. And that's why I, Justin Norris, decided to create the novel Orcaseye Skylines.
Mr. Norris was inspired to write this book just based on his love of literature, especially the novel Lord of the Flies, and his other creative talents that he has. So I played a very, very small role, but by reading early drafts and giving feedback, mostly just in the form of encouragement, because writing can be very isolating and can get a lot of self-criticism as you go through. So it's nice to hear someone else's voice and opinion on what you're working on.
Yeah, I struggled with it. I definitely didn't want it to come off like I was trying to capitalize on what happened to him in any sort of way. I just wanted it to be a very respectful thing, and also something that just other students in his position could read and maybe get some kind of solace from, and truly see that there are other people out there that care about them. And I just wanted it to come off genuine more than anything. And I wanted to tell a genuine, emotional, human story that tackled this idea of suicide that's so pervasive amongst teenagers.
When Mr. Norris first came to Sanger High, I had been teaching, I think, about 6 years. And so they link a veteran with a new teacher up through like this induction program. And so we kind of slowly became friends and better friends. And once we were good enough friends, he shared with me he'd been writing this novel for like 10 years. Back when he had just first got out of high school or whatever, he had incepted it and it'd been going on for 10 years. And so he had me read it over. Like blown away, right? I mean, because as an English teacher myself, you know, you read a ton of books, you dabble in writing yourself, and it's like, well, this guy is like, you know, he's got a 200-page novel that he's like almost done with. It was like just, you know, amazed.
I think both of those processes can be really difficult in determining how the editing process is going to look, at how heavy-handed will you allow someone else to come in on your own work. I know myself, it was very light and just sort of giving things that I noticed and maybe complimenting things that I thought he was trying to work hard on. And in terms of publishing, that can be very difficult. So I think a lot of it was just encouraging him that, you know, I think others would enjoy reading his work.
He still wasn't done with it. I mean, a lot of it had been done with him and his buddy Jeff, who had given him a lot of feedback as his reader. And so he was still like creating a few chapters and wrinkling some things out. So he would shoot me new chapters and just kind of ask for feedback in general. And so I would go over it and just talk about what I felt was working right, what maybe wasn't linking up with previous chapters, or where things could be like more emotionally driven.
I will say it was really interesting to see this side of the process, because as an avid reader, I just see the finished product. So to be able to see sort of the scene behind the scenes of drafting and changing things and making edits, and even just the different iterations that he had of it, maybe starting as a short story and then getting longer and then getting shorter, and just seeing that whole writing process from that perspective was really cool.
He never really seemed overly doubtful about anything, because I mean, he'd been working on it for 10 years, so he had definitely gotten over some of those humps of like, am I ever gonna get done? I mean, he knew he was gonna get it done. I think the biggest thing for him was finally finishing it, you know, like, because eventually just deciding when good enough was good enough and just kind of like letting his baby go.
It was surreal. Just from a creative standpoint, I was proud. that it got published, and I was just very kind of taken aback. This thing that I just put so many years of effort into is done and now out there for the world. It was a very surreal feeling just creatively, but also, and most importantly, I felt like I was doing something for Mark by putting that book out. I felt like it was my way of remembering him and my way of trying to do something about what had happened to him in a positive way to try to help anybody else in his situation. So knowing that that was out there and knowing that I was planning to share it with my students, I felt like I was making some kind of dent or some kind of difference when it comes to that tragic topic. I'm extremely nervous anytime I put out something creatively, but with that novel specifically, I was nervous because I didn't want my students to think that I was putting it out or reading it with them to like gloat or show off about my writing. I wanted to share that with them because I know how hard a high school student's life can be. I know how stressful it can be. And I want them to see that if they feel like there's nobody in their life listening or caring about them, there is definitely one person, and that's their English teacher, Mr. Norris. And that book is meant to show them how much I am listening and want to be there and know that they're not alone. It's the bottom line.
So, I mean, initially just like having the book in hand, I was like, well, this is just an amazing artifact, like this 200-page book, like my best friend wrote. That's awesome. And so read through it, dug through it, and I enjoyed it. There was definitely some really great moments. I was really struggling, and so I like to lean on the side of not lie, but like overplay how awesome something is. It was a little awkward, whatever, but it was definitely like a watershed friendship moment where it's like when you're honest like that, it opens up the relationship to new grounds. And he's like, no, I appreciate the like honest truth, you know, and you know, he's always reminding me it drives him and pushes him to want to be better.
It was an emotional experience. Obviously, I can't go back in time and bring him back or anything like that, but through that event in my life as a student teacher and through sharing this book with my students and seeing how they've responded to it on an emotional level, I see that I have done the goal that I set out to do, which was to try to talk about this topic in a meaningful way, in a way where students felt like there is an adult that genuinely cares. There's a lot of approaches when it comes to social emotional development and things like that are kind of cheesy and disingenuous that I don't really necessarily agree with, but I feel like by doing this, it made it more personal and made it more real of a connection to talk about this.
I thought it was just amazing that he was able to work through a very complicated system to be able to put the book out there for other people. And then I immediately bought it, and it's in my classroom, it's at my house.
I was thankful for everybody that helped me with the novel. I wanted to give up a lot because writing is very difficult and I'm not the best at it. Even now, I still have so much to learn. So to have so many people in my inner circle to keep pushing me to do it, to remind me why I was writing the book, you know, you're doing this for Mark, you're doing this for your future students who might be in Mark's shoes. So hearing that from my colleagues and friends and family that kept pushing me to finish it, it kept me going. And I'm very thankful for them.
Yeah, so I mean, as his friend, I knew that he needed challenges. And that's what like an editor is. It can be difficult as a friend editor because you don't want to hurt feelings, but I definitely wanted to push and challenge him to be the best he could be, because I mean, he was amazing, and I wanted to be the most amazing Mr. Norris he could be.
I guess I just want to say that in those darkest times where, you know, you feel alone, I'm talking to teenagers, adults, the elderly, I mean, this affects everybody. In those dark moments when you feel like you've got nobody, you just have to keep believing that it can get better, and you have to keep giving the world another chance, because it is possible to pull yourself out of that darkness no matter what.